Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I have a fascinating gentleman to introduce you to tonight, the founder of the Tilley hat. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. This should be exciting. I can hardly wait to hear what I'm going to say.
I can hardly wait to hear what you're going to say as well, sir. Tell me who you're sitting with.
I'm sitting with my wife, Tilley. She's a sculptor in metal, a major sculptor up here in Gravenhurst. And I'm sitting with Nancy, who's the writer of a book, which she's been working on all these many years.
And it's a book about
Alex.
It's a book about you and how you came up with the hat. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yes, it is. I've read
Well,
it 2.5 times.
I'd love to hear your story, sir. How did you come up with the idea of the hat?
I used to have a very, very beautiful sailboat, a 31-footer on Lake Ontario. And I wanted a hat in keeping with the quality of the boat, and I couldn't find one. So I decided as a midwinter's project to design one for myself and have it made to my specifications. And later, people seemed to like it, and eventually they bought it, and that began finally after 4 years of business.
And there was quite a process with designing the prototype, and you had a number of requirements that you wanted for the hat right up front. What were they, Alex?
I wanted it to float. I wanted it to tie on properly, repel rain, shouldn't shrink when you wash it, and be very washable. And that's what we came up with finally. This is a bit of an old one. Can you see it?
I can. And when was this, sir?
What year?
Oh, 1980.
And
1980.
and the tie-on and the being able to be waterproof. Did you accomplish that?
You did accomplish all the.
Of course I did.
Yes, one of the issues, of course, was having the hat not shrink when it was washed. And Alex had never sewn before and still doesn't sew, but he wasn't sure how to accomplish that, and he wanted to use a sailcloth for the hat. So he said, why can't we wash the fabric before we sew the hat so that we pre-shrink it ahead of time? So it's an example of Alex thinking out of the box. He planned
And where did you
ahead.
have it? Where did you have it manufactured, sir?
Everything we have done has been done in Toronto for many, many years. It may have changed by now. I don't own the company anymore.
Tell me about the initial marketing. How'd you get it launched?
How did you launch the hat?
So let me show you the first Tilley hat ever. I had this made for me when I was 26 years old.
Very debonair.
Mississippi gambler at that.
I'm going to put it on now.
Okay.
So Alex didn't actually start the company until much later, but he obviously had an idea about a hat for himself
Well, I found out
early on.
I found out that I could have them made to my specifications. And that's what I did.
So,
That's
you know, I
all.
think all of us have heard about Tilley hats, and many of us, including myself, are proud to wear it. But tell me, how did you launch it? Like launching a brand new clothing company, a hat company, has got to be pretty challenging. How did you launch it?
By selling them from my home. And that went on for several months until finally I was able to sell it at other places.
And boat shows. I think you
Oh,
got
yeah.
the first big batch of sales from boat shows.
I believe that's correct.
And primarily in Ontario and Canada, first of all?
Yes, and then later in the States, at boat shows in the United States.
And
How
one
long
unique
before
thing-
you entered the U.S. market?
Let's pretend 6.5 months. That's all bull. I have no idea.
So a couple years afterwards, you launched in the United States, or a couple months?
I would think a couple of years. You're probably correct.
And then
And to
how
your-
long did you own the company before you sold it, sir?
I think over 30 years.
Over 30 years, and always manufactured in Toronto and marketed
Yes.
from your home?
Yeah.
So Alex decided that when it was time to sell the company, he wrote a brief article for a report on business in the Globe and Mail. So it was a national newspaper, obviously, and it said, "I'm 79 and it's time."
And so if you had it for 30 years, did you start this when you were 49?
Approximately. I can't do the math.
And what did you do before you launched Tilley Hats, sir?
All kinds of things. I was hired by Bell Canada and fired after a month. I was hired by the Bank of Nova Scotia, fired after 9 months. So I've done a variety of things, none too successful.
And then your
Oh,
art business.
that's right. Thank you. I decided that I realized that people wanted to rent paintings. So I went to the Art Gallery of Ontario and found out that in fact they did. So I decided to become an art dealer myself. And that's what happened.
Excellent. And I understand that your father was a bank manager. What did he think about you launching a hat business?
He didn't like that very much. He probably wanted me to get a more normal job.
Did he lend you any money?
No.
He should have
But he
invested
has
in your
to run-
company.
I beg pardon?
He should have invested in your company. I understand you had an association with Sir Edmund Hillary. How did that happen?
By good luck. Sir Edmund is one of the men or one of the people of this world that I've admired the most, along with who else?
The Dalai Lama
Dalai Lama,
and Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela, good. And there's a woman involved there, the Queen. Anyway, I met a fellow who knew Sir Edmund, was actually a good friend of his, Zeke O'Connor. And Zeke said, "How would you like Sir Edmund to have one of your hats?" And I said, "Sure." So we got a hat for Sir Edmund. And Sir Edmund said, I will help publicize your hat if you outfit a number of my Sherpa friends. So that's what I did. And later I got to hike with him, Sir Edmund, in the Himalayas.
Was that quite an experience, I can imagine?
He was very much loved in that area, of course, because he helped the people that he associated with, the Sherpas, and it was quite an experience for Alex socially as much as the trekking. Of course, they weren't climbing mountains; they were trekking in the Himalayas.
Walking
And he wore a Tilley hat during that whole trek?
Yes,
And so did he. Yeah. And Alex managed to wear the wrong shoes and had a fall and injured his leg, his ankle. At the same time, Sir Ed actually was having some breathing problems because he did ultimately have some difficulty with altitude. And they were helicoptered out together. So
Really?
it was quite an adventure.
it was. I did not have any insurance. It cost me $1,000 to go out by helicopter.
Sir Ed was free.
I understand there's a story about an elephant eating a hat 3 times. What's that?
That is our best story ever. A friend of mine named Michael Hackenberger, who's a director of a particular zoo in Ontario, told me the story how an elephant had reached up, grabbed it, and eaten his Tilley hat. So we made a title of it: "Elephant Eats Tilley Hat 3 Times." This is a true story. And went from there.
Everybody remembers that story.
So it's pretty indestructible. I understand you have a lifetime guarantee on your hats.
I think that's correct. It's been a long, long time since I've been there, but I think that's the case.
How can you make money with a lifetime guarantee?
It doesn't wear out. Very seldom does it wear out.
Why this obsession with quality?
Connection with quality.
Obsession
Obsession?
with quality. Why is it important to have quality?
I'm a Canadian. We make things in Canada. We try to make the best in the world. That's what it's all about.
One word to describe Alex is persnickety. You don't hear it that often.
That's a good word.
Persnickety. Yeah. So when I came into Alex's life when the company was well established, but we would actually be choosing the buttons for the shirts once the clothing portion started. And Alex insisted that everything be double stitched and, you know, that so that things truly would last. So when you ask how he made any money, the fact is that people continued to buy hats. We know people with huge collections of Tilley hats. They buy another one because they last forever.
Well, I've got one on the back ledge of my car, and I use it quite frequently whenever I need to put that hat on. And it has probably lasted me. It's probably lasted me for more than a decade already, and that's not that long.
That's
But
great. I'm glad.
it's been a great hat.
Alex just guessed your hat size. Did you hear him? He guessed your
I have
hat size.
no idea.
Hats.
Probably large. I got a large head.
Yeah, he
tell me
said
about-
7 3/8.
Okay, advertising. Your advertising has always been well recognized with very creative ads, and you've won awards. What's your secret?
Dear Lord, don't let us bore them.
Don't let us bore them.
Correct. So it came up with good headlines that made people enjoy what they're about to read.
And
And
testimonials.
I understand that product testing is critically important to you, and you've got a story about someone that has a life as a Tilley tester.
That's your story, Hillary.
As a Tilley tester. Well, that actually, I discovered that I was responsible for trying out the ladies' line of clothing. So whenever Alex and I went on a trip, I was outfitted in the new clothing so that I could test things.
And
So
we gave you 10% off.
yeah, so I would have at one point we were in a country where the traffic was going in the opposite direction, and Alex had to save my life several times because the brim of my hat with the traffic would blow down and I couldn't see where I was going, and he'd have to yank me back. So when we got back, of course, we had to make sure that there was a wire in the edge of the hat so that didn't happen to customers. You don't want to bump off your customers with a hat that flops. So
Well, this one won't flop.
no, it's stiff. There's a stiffener in it. And there's the police trip too.
What's the biggest mistake, or is there one that you've made? I
Oh,
understand
yes.
that it might be the right to buy back your business.
Yeah. Anything else?
Oh, yeah, I brought in a man who I later made a partner, and it turned out to be a terrible thing to do. So that ended us in court. I had to pay him $1.4 million. That was pretty bad.
But Alex gave him 50% of his company.
He wanted 35.
And Alex, being over generous as he continues to be to this day, gave him 50. So that became an issue, obviously, when things went stale.
So be very careful when you pick a partner.
And 49 and 51%, not 50%.
Not 50-50.
I made a lot
I
of stupid mistakes.
I understand that one of your proudest moments was when you supplied the Canadian Department of National Defence with Tilley hats during the Gulf War. Tell me about how did that happen? How did you?
Oh, yes.
How did you?
Yeah, one morning during the Gulf War, we got a call from the government saying we need 1,000 hats. And it was for the Navy. And we had them packed up by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, complete with a letter called To Our Warriors, which told a lot about the hat and what they're supposed to do. And the fact if the officer couldn't tell them how to use the hat, see the sergeant, he knows everything. It was a funny letter. And it went from there, then into thousands more. And then even some in the States and the United Nations. It was our hat is the best of its type in the world, which took me as a Canadian a long time to tell people that because we're never sure of these things.
Well, I think that you must have been extremely proud to have the Canadian military wearing your hats in war.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll be wearing it on Remembrance Day.
And probably pretty good publicity too.
Yes, it works. Yeah, it was a good thing.
I've got
I
one
think
final
that's
question for
when
you.
Alex, I think that's when Alex was able to finally move away from the not yet famous Tilley hat to the world famous in parts of Canada. Is that what you would say?
Probably, yeah,
World famous in certain parts of Canada.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one final question for you, if I could, sir. I understand that you've supported youth your whole career and your whole life through speaking to students giving advice to young entrepreneurs, supporting youth entrepreneurial programs. If a young person came to you today and said they wanted to start a business, they wanted to become an entrepreneur, what would your advice be?
Get a sponsor, get somebody who's older and wiser and who has done it.
Mentor.
A mentor. Thank you.
Good advice.
$500.
Can we
And-
talk about the book for a second? Tell me a little bit about the book, why you decided to write it, and where it's available.
Well, it's available on Amazon, and the reason I decided to write it was Hillary's idea, actually. I had met Alex back in 2003, and I wrote several articles on him for North Country Business newspaper, and then the following year, Muskoka Magazine asked me to write a feature article on him, and I was fascinated by the man. He had this.
I'm very personable.
You come across extremely personable.
Just his obsession with quality and customer service. He just believed so passionately in his business and in serving his customers and treating his employees well. And I was just, who is this person? Like, he's very unusual, and I loved his creativity in his advertising, the way he wrote his
And
testimony.
modest.
So when
Nancy?
they asked me, I jumped at it.
Nancy, what's the title of the book, please?
It's right here. And it's called The Endurable Alex Tilley.
Alex and Hillary and Nancy, I really appreciate you joining us today and telling us a little bit about the story of the Tilley hat, but more importantly, Alex, your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This has
Thank
been
you.
fun for us all.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you. I
Brian.
look forward to wearing my hat on a hike this weekend.
Super.
Wonderful.
All the best. That's our show for tonight, everybody. Thank you very much for joining. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online, even from Muskoka, at www.saga960am.ca. And you know what? I made a big mistake because in my car right now is my Tilley hat. I should have had it on. I apologize, sir. I won't let that happen again. Next time I'm chatting outside, I'll have my hat on.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Brian.
Wonderful.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.